Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart and it's time to take another look at some really cool airbrushing equipment from Gaahleri. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. So the wonderful guys at Gaahleri have supported the channel again by sending me some things to have a look at. We have new in their Ace series, a GHAC 98D airbrush. This is a dual needle airbrush. It'll be very, very cool. It looks to be higher spec than the Mobius ones that I've been using and absolutely love. So I'll have a good look at this one. And they've also sent me a compressor to have a look at as well. So this is what I've been using for a little while now. The Mobius, I started with the 0.3, which is my main go-to brush every day. And then I got the 0.2 as well, which I most recently reviewed. Absolutely love them. And this is the new one. So the premium was where the Mobius sat in their little line, and this is an Ace level, and it looks like they got Supreme to come in the future. So let's get it opened up and have a little look at what's inside. As with all their previous brushes, good quality hard cardboard, nice sort of premium feel to it with a exploded display of all the parts and a diagram inside the box, so it's not a piece of paper that you'll lose. So you do need to take it apart to clean. You can always go back to refer to that. A couple of bits of paperwork as usual inside, so a little thing about quality, and then you get this quick start guide and all of their airbrushes as well. Just real basics about setup, what to look for with your first few sprays, so whether you're getting spidering or spitting with the paint. There's some really simple advice if you've never airbrushed before, which is really helpful. Lots of spares in the box. You've got spare O-rings and things. You've got lube in there. You've got the airbrush itself, and you've got your second nozzle and needle as well. So this is a 0.38 and a 0.50. There it is all laid out. So it's got the 0.38 needle in there as standard at the moment, and I'll put the 0.58 in later on for testing. The quality feels absolutely spot on, just like the Mobius ones did as well. Slightly different construction and design in this one, the way the trigger there fits in. You have to dangle a little loose bit in, and it feels a lot tighter when it's in there, so maybe there's less chance of paint escaping back into the mechanism. I'm not sure about why the design is that way. And then the needle and nozzle design is different as well. The needle, when it goes in, feels really, really snug and tight, and again, I think there's less chance of paint getting anywhere that it shouldn't do then. At least I hope that's what it's for. And I've used it quite a lot at the time of talking about this, and it definitely performed very well in those regards, kept very clean. And then you've got your slightly different nozzle style there. It's very small and it is hard to get out of the nozzle cap. That's the only thing that I find a little bit difficult about it, but the performance of it is very good. All goes together super easily, and as I said, this little nozzle here is much smaller than the ones in the Mobius. You've still got that airflow design, but it's definitely completely different, and it's this nozzle cover there, and it fits in quite snug. What I find is that when you take it off again, the nozzle is stuck in the nozzle cover, and the design means that probably not an issue, but it's quite hard to get out, and I wouldn't want to damage it. So for a new user, you may find that a little bit daunting at first, a little bit complicated, but having used it for a few hours now, the paint doesn't seem to get in there anyway. But either way, it was very easy to change your needles as expected. It's only that little bit with the nozzle in the nozzle cap that maybe when it needs to be taken out for a really good detail clean, it could be a little bit tricky. But aside from that, I really, really like it and didn't have any head scratching moments at all. It felt very familiar. Someone who's used airbrushes for years. It feels nice in the hand. As I said, good quality. It feels like a premium product. It doesn't feel like a cheap airbrush that you pick up and get free with your air compressor. Sometimes it definitely feels like a proper premium airbrush that you spent an awful lot of money for, and the price for this, it's definitely an awful lot cheaper. And while it's their most expensive individual airbrush so far, only just over the Mobius, it's still under £100 or $100. Those prices will fluctuate. I think I've just checked Amazon at the moment, and it's $96.99 in the UK. I think directly through Gaahleri dollars, it's currently reduced to $79.99. So really, really good price for a premium airbrush. And when you're comparing that with your Harder and Steenbeck Ultras, that kind of thing, it's that kind of level of airbrush, probably maybe even a little bit better, if I'm honest with you. I think that's a pretty good price. This is the first of their compressors that they sent me. It's the Dual Drive Series GT918. It's got a 1 litre tank, which is quite small. I've only ever used 2 compressors in my lifetime. A very, very basic, cheap starter one, which was a similar kind of size. And then after that, a really, really basic, cheap one with a 3 litre tank. Other than that, there's very, very little difference to it. So I've not had any experience with any of the high-end compressors out there. This definitely looks prettier than the ones I've used before. I use the ones the kind of things you see when you look for those cheap starter sets, and it's done me fine and my business and my job fine for years. But this thing looks very, very nice. Switch one side, you've got 2 regulator valves there, so you can set 2 separate PSIs. And it's a relatively nice looking bit of kit. You've got 2 connectors there, just to screw those in. Everything as you'd expect. The second regulator actually has an end cap on there, but I was able to just screw that off with my thumb so I could attach the second hose. You do get 2 hoses in the box with it, including 2 water filters or moisture traps in there as well. And then it's time to turn to the manual. Being a bloke, I've already unpacked it all and switched it on before I've even read any of this, which is always the way you go. But there's nothing really in there that is a surprise as someone who's been airbrushing a little while. So it's very much like the airbrush. Really good, easy to read basics, hardly any pages to read, just to get you up and going. So these are the moisture traps or water filters. It describes them as there's a filter in there as well, which is good if you're in a hard water area, so you're filtering the water you've got going through your airbrush. And it also captures the moisture and condensation that gets built up when you're airbrushing, because that can get shot through the airbrush in the middle of spraying, which is really frustrating because it can completely wreck what you're doing. And it's got a little valve in there to help release that water. You've got 2 little clips here for putting your airbrushes in, so use them like a stand. Those silver bits are coloured plastic, they're not metal. The other part of the tank, the main black covering, is metal, but those definitely are plastic. As a preference, I'd quite like the regulator valves and the controls to be on the same side as your airbrush holders, because if you've got your airbrushes one side to use them, you've then got to turn your whole compressor around to manage your pressure and to see what the pressure is, which doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But this seems to be a fairly standard design you see with a lot of compressors. It's just not super user friendly, but I wouldn't say it's a huge problem. What you can see here is I've got it all set up and switched on now, and you've got your maximum air pressure and you've got your usable air pressure. So when you pull down on your trigger, it takes a bit of the pressure off and the needle drops, so you can adjust it with the controller, get it set to a level that you're happy with depending on the job you want to do, the size needle you've got, what kind of paint you're using. There's no correct set thing, it's just the right pressure for what you're trying to do. And as you could hear there in the background, I deliberately left the sound in of the compressor. You can hear how loud it is as it fills up the tank. Once it's full, you can use it for a little while without any sound, but it will just kick in as soon as enough of that air has gone. And with a 1 litre tank being a smaller size tank, it will do that more often. So if you're new to airbrushing, you've got to think about when that makes noise, who around you is going to upset. If your office is right next to a newborn babies or something like that, you probably won't be airbrushing when you want them to sleep. All those things to bear in mind. But in terms of volume, it's very standard compared to all the kind of compressors that I've used in the past. I'm sure there are lots more really expensive ones that are much quieter, but this is sort of the bottom end of their range and market. Time for the obligatory first play around. Now this is the 0.38. I've put some white in just so it really shows up, and it's super smooth, really nice and easy. I've only thinned the paint with water as well. Just great. I'm not trying very hard here to be super fine or super thin, very much getting used to the feel of the trigger and the flow and the way it works. It takes a little while with a new airbrush just to get your muscle memory up, but even first time use, it's like getting a new car. Sometimes you get used to the clutch. If you're from a part of the world where you're not all automatic, it's that kind of thing with an airbrush. So that first few minutes, it just takes you a little while to get used to the feel and where the pressure is. But even this was straight out of the box, straight on, and it was fairly controllable straight away. And with a little bit of practice, having used it for a little while, it's amazing how you can really refine and have a lot of great control over you want to do. But it's really cool, smooth atomization, and I can see why this is one of their higher end brushes. I'm really messing around here, decided to pretty much go full burst. So as soon as I got it going, I'm now pulling back directly on the trigger there, and just to see how much it sprays and what kind of cone you get. I'm not trying to make that neat, but I thought let's put it through its proper paces. This is 4 grey colours from the 2 thin coats range that I'm using for an army project, a commission. And I had quite a lot to work on in one go. So there's 6 Leman Russ Solar Auxiliary tanks, there's 10 infantry, there's a Thunderbolt flyer, and some Sentinels as well. And I wanted to get all the grey down them. So I thought I'm going to do it with this brush and really work hard at it for 2 or 3 hours and see how it hangs up. Not only the brush, but also the compressor, it being only a 1 litre tank in that period. It's super easy. Now I have switched over to the 0.5 needle now. Especially for this first layer here, I'm doing pretty much an all over coverage of a very, very dark grey. So I want it to be quick. This is work. I build up through the lighter colours. I don't have any issues at all. And sometimes with greys, because they've got a lot of white in them, white can be a problem going through an airbrush, can be a bit chalky, can clog up. I just didn't have any issues at all. It was super, super smooth. And I can feel the quality difference. It's very subtle, but there is a slight quality difference and a step up from the Mobius range, which I've been using, and that makes sense. This is a higher level of quality. So we're very interested to see if part of this Ace range, they also bring out a version with the 0.2 and the 0.3 needles as a size to this being a 0.38 and then the 0.5, because the smoothness of the atomization was just incredible with greys, which can sometimes be an issue. But don't get me wrong, 2 thin coats paints are just awesome for the airbrush as well. I'm a big fan of using them. But this is still using the 0.5. I was able to go in quite small, and it was a really enjoyable morning's work. I didn't have to fight with the airbrush at all. There was no clogging, no blocking, no swearing going on in the background as I dealt with things like that, and it made my work very, very easy, and I enjoyed it. And I got through all of this in 2.5 hours, all base coated, using that new airbrush. So it just works. So overall, what do I think? I didn't know what to expect to start with. I really liked the Mobius, and I wanted to know where this pitched in the range. I actually emailed Jerome, who sent me the airbrush, and said, where does it fit? And then he told me where it fits in the range. It's a higher quality than the Mobius. And I can definitely feel it in the use, in the look of it. I'd say it looks a similar quality to the Mobius ranges. You know, there's no gold on this, so some people would look at it and think one looks shinier than the other. But they're all very, very good quality brushes. I think the needle and the nozzle, that smaller design, that different design, is probably where the main improvement is, or at least I can feel that. And I'm quite excited about that, and I'd like to, as I say, keep trying them, and hopefully they bring out a 0.2 and a 0.3 version of this Ace as well, because it could be really fantastic. Will it work for a beginner? Price-wise, absolutely. In terms of the quality of the brush, it's absolutely great. I can't see why I wouldn't recommend it to a beginner. Potentially look at the Mobius ranges as a really good sort of medium to that, but just because I think the nozzles are a little bit easier to clean to start with, less finicky parts. But I'll be using this now alongside my Mobiuses. This will be probably for what I've used it today. It's so smooth for those larger sort of base coats going down. And what about the compressor? It worked really, really fine. I've only used it for a couple of hours. It's the same kind of standard, I'd imagine, as a lot of your base layer, your entry level compressors are. It's really good to have the 2 different valves there, so you can set different pressures, and that's really handy for me. I will have one set for my base coat layers, and I'll have one for sort of smaller detail work with a lower PSI, which means I don't need to play around with them too often. You do want to get some quick release, especially with those water traps, because they're annoying to screw off. I've only had one, so I need to order another one of those, but with quick releases as well, absolutely perfect. Price wise, it's pretty good as well. I know they have more in their range. I'll be interested to see how the others compare, and then, you know, move on to those and compare which is the best value overall. But if you're looking for something to get you going, then this is absolutely fine. It will do most beginners no problem at all, and I'm going to keep using it for a while. It may well do me completely fine before I decide I want something with a larger tank again. Do check out their Prime deals. They are live now at the time of this video. Prime sales are only on for a couple of days. I think this one started on the 7th and goes on for 2-3 days or something like that, but check them out. I've given 2 of the airbrushes away before as part of a competition, so the GAD 68 and the GAD 39, which are really super cheap on the Prime Day deals. Definitely check those out if you're into a real sort of beginner's brush, but still amazing quality for a beginner's brush. The Mobius 2.0 is on that deal as well. I'm not sure if there are others, but definitely go and check those out. I don't think the one I've reviewed today is. I think it's new, but lots of different variety, and I can just, all the airbrushes and all the products I have touched of Gaahleri so far have just been so good. I would happily recommend them to anyone.
Well, I hope you found that useful in one way or another delve into some Gaahleri products. I genuinely wouldn't be making these videos if they were sending them to me and I didn't think they were very good. I would have politely stopped by now because I don't want to recommend things that I wouldn't use myself. And I've genuinely been using the Mobius as my main airbrush for all my commission work, all the videos you see on the channel. And it's been great to have a look at these as well and see that range expanding. The prices are just fantastic in comparison to their competitors. They're widely available now in loads of markets, especially via Amazon all over the world. Everything Airbrush here in the UK stocks them now as well. As I said, the prices are just so good, in my opinion, for the quality that you get. There's not saying there's not other great airbrushes out there. Of course there are. I love the other things I have. I love my harder and steam backs as well. But I'm just being so impressed about how good these are. And I can't say that enough. And hopefully that's coming across as genuine, because I really feel it. They are great for the price. And if you were beginning in airbrushing, the kind of money you'd look to sort of spend and lay out at the beginning when you start airbrushing, you can get so much more for your money with these. And you may not find that you need to replace that brush so quickly. It's just great. So if you're thinking about getting into airbrushing, dip in, give them a go. If you're an existing airbrusher and you want to try something else, looking for a replacement brush, worried about the cost of it, just have a look at one of these, have a look at that Mobius range, have a look at this new Ace range as well. They may well do the job that you've been doing for years with your harder and steam backs, with your Neos, all of those kind of things. So you might just find that these brushes do the job that you need for your wargaming armies and things like that. They're just great, so do check them out. But as I said before, thank you very much for watching. There's loads of links in the video description below to all of these products. Check out the Prime Day deals that I mentioned early on. This video is coming out on the first day of those Prime sales, so there's a couple of days. If you're watching this well afterwards, you may have missed them, but they do tend to come around quite often. And I think the last 2 or 3 Prime Day deals Gaahleri have put offers on. But the prices are so good anyway, so do check them out. I've got all my usual links in the video description below as well. My other affiliates of Warlord Games, Knott's Hobbies, and then I've also got my patrons. If you'd like to support me in that way, you can find out how to do that there as well. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.